When I first heard the expression violence in the name of Allah, I remember thinking how irrelevant it was to religion, because Islam is a religion of peace. But over time, the news and the media and the horrible images we see on the screens have completely changed this perception. Those who take the lives of innocent people with swords in their hands try to justify their actions by saying God is great. But is this really Islam? Today we embark on a deep journey to give a clear answer to this question. We will look at the core teachings of Islam, the historical and cultural roots of beheading, and how organizations like ISIS try to justify these acts. If you are ready, let's begin. First of all, we need to understand this. Islam is founded on peace and justice. Even when we look at the root of the word, it means peace. The 32nd verse of Surah Ma'id reads as follows: "Whoever kills a life is as if he has killed all mankind, and whoever saves a life is as if he has saved all mankind." This is a message that applies not only to Muslims but to all humanity. The Holy Quran considers human life sacred and completely rejects violence. However, this message of peace has been distorted and taken out of context by some groups. When we look at the life of Prophet Muhammad PBUH, we see this message of peace clearly. The Prophet repeatedly emphasized that even in war, the innocent should not be touched. Do not touch women, children, the elderly, or worshippers. Do not cut down trees or burn crops. These exhortations show that Islam seeks peace not only between human beings, but also between nature and all living creatures. However, this message has been distorted and exploited by different ideologies throughout history. Let's come to the real issue, namely, is beheading really permitted in Islam? Beheading has been used as a method of execution not only in Islam, but also in many societies throughout history. For example, in the Roman Empire, it was often practiced to intimidate the population and maintain discipline. Medieval Europe, it was one of the most popular methods of capital punishment. In Ottoman and pre-Islamic Arab society, the practice of retaliation, i.e. giving an equivalent punishment to the offender, was common. For example, if a person intentionally kills another person, under Islamic law, the family of the murdered person can demand retaliation, i.e. that the perpetrator be punished in the same way. However, if the victim's family wishes, they can choose to forego the right to retaliation and opt for a diet blood payment. For example, a person who kills someone is punished by being killed in the same way, but in the case of forgiveness, the punishment is forgiven or a financial compensation is paid. So this is quite unofficial but common in Turkey. Islam, however, has taken these practices completely under control and prioritized justice and forgiveness. For example, Surah Al-Baqarah verse 178 states, "There is life for you in retaliation, but forgiveness is better for you." This verse emphasizes that even punishment has its limits and that forgiveness is a higher virtue. However, modern terrorist organizations ignore this context and use it to legitimize violence. But today, organizations like ISIS use the Quran and Hadiths in a distorted way to suit their ideology. One of the verses they refer to most often is the following statement from Surah Al-Anfal 12. "Your Lord was at the same time revealing to the angels, 'Surely I am with you, so make sure that the believers are not shaken. I will strike fear into the hearts of the disbelievers. So strike them on the necks and cut off every fingertip of their bows and swords.'" Yes, the verse clearly says this, but it was revealed during the Battle of Badr, 1401 years ago, when the Muslims were facing an enemy army much stronger in numbers and equipment than their own. This verse was revealed to encourage the Muslims and boost their morale. The wording of the verse only describes a situation on the battlefield and is only valid in the context of the defensive struggle at the time. However, groups like ISIS have taken this verse out of its historical context and portrayed it as a call for violence against the civilian population. This is a distortion of religious teachings to suit their own interests. The basic tenets of Islam, however, strictly prohibit harming innocents and enjoin the preservation of human values even in war. Therefore, For organizations like ISIS to present this verse as a call for violence against civilians is a misinterpretation of both the message of the Quran and the essence of Islam. While Islam commands the protection of human values even in war, the attempt by these groups to legitimize violence by taking such a verse out of context is pure propaganda. So, how does ISIS carry out this propaganda? Here are its methods. 1. Decontextualization. They use verses and hadiths by abstracting them from the historical context in which they were revealed. 2. Creating fear and chaos. They aim to create fear in societies by sharing images of atrocities on social media. 3. Seeking religious legitimacy. They try to justify their acts of violence as Allah's commandment. However, these interpretations are completely contrary to the spirit of Islam. These organizations aim to increase their power by using religion as a tool. Contemporary Islamic scholars have clearly condemned such acts of violence. For example, Al-Azhar University, ISIS's actions are completely contrary to Islam's message of peace and justice. These scholars emphasized that the Quran must be read in its context and that such organizations mislead people by distorting the religion. Islam is characterized by compassion, not violence. So what can we do to avoid being exposed to misinformation? Why is it so important to get the right information, especially on religious issues? Here's a short but effective guide. Consulte reliables sources. To understand Islam, prefer Quranic translations and authentic hadith sources. Also look for explanations from reputable institutions such as Al-Azhar University. Understand the context. Quranic verses and hadiths have a context according to the circumstances of the time in which they were revealed. Without understanding this context, wrong interpretations can be made. Verify from multiple sources. Instead of relying on a single source, get information on the same topic from different sources. This allows you to recognize errors and distortions. Avoid personal comments. Be wary of information and comments circulating on social media. Question and evaluate what people who are not experts on religion say. Consult experts. Consult religious scholars and academics who are experts on the subject. The most effective way to access the right information is to learn from competent people. In conclusion, Islam is first and foremost a religion of peace. But today, as it has been throughout history, some people are trying to distort this message of peace and impose their own ideology. Organizations like ISIS do not represent Islam. On the contrary, they represent the greatest evil done to this religion. This is because people who do not know enough about Islam may think that the brutal acts of such terrorist organizations are part of Islam. Thus, barbaric acts such as beheadings may be perceived as a normal and continuous practice in Islam. Finally, I would like to say this: let us fight with knowledge, not violence. True Islam is the religion of peace, justice, and mercy. It is our responsibility to understand and explain this truth. Dear viewers, we have come to the end of a video. Don't forget to follow us for more interesting and curious content like this.